Let's begin with something most people have never heard of, yet it represents a quiet and deeply troubling development in modern medicine. The organism is called Candida auris. On the surface, it's a fungus, something that might sound relatively harmless. After all, fungi are everywhere. They live in soil, in the air, even on our skin. Most of the time, they coexist with us without causing serious harm. But every once in a while, nature produces something different, something that doesn't play by the usual rules. And Candida auris is one of those rare and unsettling exceptions. What makes this organism particularly alarming is not simply that it causes infection. Medicine has dealt with fungal infections for centuries. The deeper problem is that this fungus has evolved a disturbing level of resistance to the very medications designed to stop it. In many cases, the standard antifungal treatments simply don't work. Imagine facing an infection where the usual tools, the ones doctors rely on, suddenly become ineffective. That's the reality researchers and healthcare systems are increasingly confronting. And then there's its ability to survive. Most pathogens weaken quickly outside the human body. But Candida auris can linger on surfaces, hospital beds, medical equipment, even the walls of healthcare facilities, for extended periods. It hides in the environment, waiting for opportunity. And when it finds that opportunity, particularly among vulnerable individuals, it spreads with unsettling efficiency. What makes this even more complex is that it's often difficult to identify. In many laboratories, it can be mistaken for other, less dangerous fungi. That delay in recognition can allow it to quietly move through hospitals and care facilities before anyone realizes what they're dealing with. By the time it's detected, the problem may already be larger than expected. Now step back for a moment and consider what this represents. We live in a time when medical science has accomplished extraordinary things. We can perform organ transplants, manage diseases that once meant certain death, and extend life in ways previous generations could barely imagine. But organisms like Candida auris remind us of a sobering truth: nature is not static. It adapts, it evolves, and sometimes it evolves faster than our systems are prepared for. So the lesson here isn't panic, it's awareness. Because the first step in confronting any serious threat is recognizing that it exists. And perhaps the most important realization is this: the challenges of the future won't always arrive loudly. Sometimes they emerge quietly, microscopically, and invisibly, until the moment we finally choose to pay attention. Once you begin to understand what Candida auris is, the next question becomes far more personal, and perhaps more unsettling. How does it spread, and who is truly at risk? Because infectious threats rarely exist in isolation. They move through systems, through hospitals, through communities, and through the fragile spaces where human vulnerability meets modern medicine. One of the most striking aspects of Candida auris is the environment in which it thrives. It's not typically spreading through casual contact on the street or through everyday interactions. Instead, it tends to appear where people are already fighting for their health: hospitals, intensive care units, long-term care facilities. These are places designed to heal, yet they also concentrate some of the most vulnerable individuals in society. And that creates a paradox. The very environments meant to protect life can, under certain circumstances, become pathways for something dangerous. The fungus spreads primarily through contact, contaminated surfaces, shared medical equipment, or even the hands of healthcare workers if strict hygiene protocols aren't maintained. And remember, this organism has a troubling ability to survive on surfaces for extended periods. That means it doesn't simply disappear when the room is empty. It waits, quietly, patiently, but the risk is not evenly distributed. Healthy individuals with strong immune systems are rarely the primary targets. Instead, Candida auris finds opportunity among those whose defenses are already compromised: patients recovering from surgery, individuals with weakened immune systems, people relying on ventilators, catheters, or other invasive medical devices. In these moments, the body is already under immense strain, and the smallest microscopic invader can exploit that vulnerability. And there's a deeper philosophical point here that's worth considering. Modern medicine has achieved extraordinary things by keeping people alive in situations that would once have been impossible. Intensive care units, life support systems, complex surgical interventions. These are triumphs of human ingenuity. But every technological advance creates new ecological spaces where microbes can adapt and evolve. In other words, as our systems grow more complex, so too do the challenges that emerge within them. So understanding the spread of Candida auris is not merely about microbiology. It's about responsibility. It's about hygiene, vigilance, and the recognition that small actions, washing hands properly, following infection control procedures, maintaining awareness, can protect lives in ways that are often invisible but profoundly important. Because in the end, the spread of a microscopic organism often comes down to something surprisingly simple: the discipline of human behavior. And sometimes the difference between containment and catastrophe is nothing more than whether we choose to take that responsibility seriously. So once you understand what Candida auris is, and once you recognize how it spreads through the most vulnerable corners of our healthcare systems, the natural question becomes, what can we actually do about it? Because awareness, while essential, is only the first step. The real challenge is how we respond. The fight against something like this begins with vigilance. In modern medicine, detection is everything. Hospitals and laboratories must be able to identify Candida auris quickly and accurately, because delays allow it to move quietly through healthcare environments before anyone realizes the scale of the problem. That means better diagnostic tools, better training, and systems that are prepared to recognize the unusual rather than assume the ordinary. In many ways, it's a reminder that progress in science isn't just about discovering new cures, it's about learning to see clearly. But detection alone isn't enough. Prevention is where the real discipline lies. Infection control practices, thorough cleaning of medical equipment, proper sterilization, consistent hand hygiene, may sound almost mundane. They lack the drama of breakthrough drugs or revolutionary technologies. Yet these basic practices remain some of the most powerful defenses we have. And that's an important psychological truth. The solutions to complex problems often depend on whether people consistently do the simple things well. There's also the issue of how we use medication. For decades, antifungal and antibiotic treatments have been used widely, sometimes unnecessarily. And microbes, being remarkably adaptive, respond to that pressure by evolving resistance. Candida auris is a stark example of what happens when nature adapts faster than our habits change. So responsible use of medication, prescribing it carefully, using it only when necessary, isn't just a clinical decision. It's a long-term strategy for protecting the effectiveness of the treatments we still have. And finally, there's the role of global cooperation. Pathogens do not respect borders. An outbreak in one region can become a global concern within months. That means surveillance, data sharing, and coordinated responses between countries and healthcare institutions are absolutely essential. In a world that is increasingly connected, our defenses must be connected as well. All of this points to a deeper realization. The battle against emerging superbugs isn't just a medical challenge. It's a test of collective responsibility, discipline, and foresight. Because the future of public health may ultimately depend on something very simple: whether we choose to take small warnings seriously before they become enormous problems.